Hello and welcome back to the simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 13 of 24 from Budapest in Hungary. The second half of the season begins now with a double header of European races before the summer break, and everything is still to play for in our simulated season. Here's how the drivers' standings shape up after last time out at Britain. Max Verstappen takes the lead of the championship just like his real life counterpart, with Yuki Tsunoda remaining in second and Leclerc dropping to third. The two Brits are Hamilton and Norris occupy P4 and P5 respectively, with Alonso trailing the pair of them in 6th. Perez is 5 points ahead of Piastri in 7th, with Albon and Sainz rounding up the top 10. As for the constructors, Red Bull shoot up to the top of the standings, displacing Ferrari, who move down to 2nd. Red Bull's sister team are 3rd, and McLaren are not too far behind in 4th. Mercedes are closely following in 5th, with Aston Martin remaining in P6. Sauber are outclassing their real-life counterparts in 7th, and Williams and Alpine are fighting a close battle for 8th. Haas, like the majority of this season, remain in last place. Compared to the actual standings, Verstappen extends his lead over Norris, with the two Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz still in P3 and P4, despite a disappointing showing in Silverstone. Piastri leapfrogs Perez into P5, with the two Mercedes drivers of Russell and Hamilton also looking to leapfrog the struggling Red Bull driver. The two Aston Martin drivers of Alonso and Stroll round up the top 10. As for the constructors, Red Bull extend their advantage over Ferrari, but McLaren have reduced their deficit to the Scarlet team to just 7 points, currently making it a three-way fight for the top. Mercedes, with their upgrades, look set to make it a four-way fight heading into the summer break. Aston Martin locked down P5, but there's a fight brewing for P6 between RB and Haas. Alpine remain in 8th, Williams in 9th, and Sauber still have no points to their name. Now, it's time to find out who will be racing as for the Hungarian GP. Verstappen has been removed from the wheel, leaving 8 drivers to be selected. Without further ado, let's see who will be racing as around the Hungaroring. And we finally get selected a Haas driver with Kevin Magnussen. Haas are floundering in our simulated championship right now, but will this race finally get their season kick-started, or will it end up being like the rest? It's time for the Hungarian Grand Prix.
It is time for the drivers to dance on the edge. You are never resting, you are never still in qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix, right here at the Hungaroring.
Alrighty, here we are at the Hungaroring in the Haas with Kevin Magnussen, and it's raining as well to boot, so we've got a very interesting qualifying session on our hands as we skip to the end of our first run here. Setting a time of 1:31.728, which is only good enough for 5th currently. I feel like I could have done better on the lap though, so I decided to go on another run immediately, and you can see I set a purple sector 1, but I do have my teammate in front of me, which is not ideal. Nonetheless though, I set a lap time that's about half a second faster than the original attempt, and I move up to P3, which is very good, but I decided to do another run at the end of the session with intermediate tyres to round up the session. So I did 3 runs in one session, and yeah, it ended up being a pretty good call as I end up in P1 at the end of Q1. And we lost during Q1 Pierre Gasly, Logan Sargent, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, and then Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin is last. Yeah, Perez out in Q1. I would say that's a surprise, but considering how poorly he's doing IRL right now, I don't think that's much of a surprise. His simulated counterpart is just emulating his real life counterpart. As we move to Q2, we do our first run on intermediate tyres. We actually head up the timesheet there with 125.990. But as the session moves on, it does dry out, so we do end up making another run on soft tyres right at the end, because everyone else did a soft tyre run. We cross the line for Q2, and we end up with B1 again. So good idea to get that soft tyre run done. And we've lost from Q2 Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hülkenberg, our teammate. George Russell in the Mercedes is out in Q2 again. Yuki Tsunoda, and then Lewis Hamilton again, ending up P15 in a qualifying session. Both Mercedes out in Q2. Not very good for them, especially considering their real-life counterparts are doing very well right now. But their simulated versions definitely not living up to the mark. As we move on to Q3 now, this is our final run in Q3. We decided to do the one run in Q3 strat, considering the track is dry now. So yeah, we'll go through the first sequence of corners. First corner, then the second corner, the 2 DRS zones only there. As you can see, like, we've got Albon in P7, Norris in P6. It could all change by the time the qualifying is over, but we do set a purple sector 1, 26.6, lighting up the timesheets there, so we're off to a very good start on our lap. However, Sector 2 tends to be the sector where I kind of lose a lot of time, so it might bounce back into whoever's in first right now's favour, probably Max Verstappen. As we move through the lap, we actually kind of have a bit of a swapper on going through that corner there. Actually, Max Verstappen just sets the lap time 1:15.1, so he is definitely now in first. But we are doing a good run in Sector 2. It's not purple Sector 2, but we are nearly a second ahead of Norris in P6, who has a 1:15.8. So considering Max's time is a 1:15.1, we are looking pretty good as long as we don't make any mistakes coming out the final corner. We do not as we head towards the line now. And we do set a 1:14, so it's good enough for pole position here at the Hungaroring. Very good stuff there. Haas, very, very happy with that. It's their second pole position. And it's a game with Kevin Magnussen. So yeah, Magnussen on pole, Verstappen in second. What a shocker. Valtteri Bottas actually third in the Kick Sauber. Very good stuff there. Piastri fourth. Zhou Guanyu in fifth. Amazing double result there for Sauber in this qualifying session. Leclerc in P6, Lando Norris in P7, qualifying behind his teammate. Alexander Albon in 8th in the Williams, not too bad from him. Sainz in P9, and his fellow Spaniard, Fernando Alonso, is P10. And there we go, qualifying is over for this race. So now all we got now, I can't talk. All we got now left is the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Welcome to Hungary. We're on the outskirts of the capital, Budapest, at a track that's extremely popular with both the fans and the drivers. I'm talking about the Hungaroring, one of our favourite stops on the calendar, the Hungarian Grand Prix. We're in the northeast of Budapest for the race today then, at the 2.7 mile Hungaroring circuit. 14 corners here, 8 to the right and 6 to the left, on a track where downforce is king and passing is notoriously difficult. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Kevin Magnussen lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Zhou, Leclerc, Norris, Albon, Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Russell, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Gasly, Sargent, Perez, Ocon, and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. It's race day, it's going to be a thriller. I'm Alex Jakes, alongside me is Naomi Schiff. Now, those final hours before a race, did you have a routine?
Well, every driver certainly has their own way of preparing themselves before a race. But I can tell you that pre-race rituals are a real thing. When I was in go-karting, I used to touch every wheel in a specific sequence before I got into the kart. And then I stepped up to cars and had a specific set of fireproof base layers just for race day. So watch the drivers when they're on the grid. Some may be sitting on the floor and isolating, others may be up to other things that they do. But these little things really help their minds get ready for the race.
I really wish they'd stop talking about pre-race routines. Every single race I've done, they talk about pre-race routines in this game. Do they not have any other dialogue? I do not know. But nonetheless, we're on the grid here for the race, the Hungarian Grand Prix. We got a two-stop strategy currently, but if you looked at the top of the screen there, you would have seen that rain is definitely forecast for this race. So we may end up having to change the strategy on the fly, as now we move on to the formation lap. I do apologise for my stuttering at the end of the qualifying there, but I do like doing these live because, you know, the commentators have to do it live, so doing this live is a bit more authentic, I think. As we've got quite a mixture of tyres for the grid, actually. Some people on mediums, some people on hards, and we've got a few on softs, including both the McLarens. Piastri in P4, Norris in P7, both starting on the softs. And yeah, we got some near the end of the grid, and also Sainz and Alonso, both starting on hards. So very much a mixture of strategies here, which should be interesting considering the rain is on its way. I don't know when the rain will arrive in the race, but I decided to go with mediums because it does give me a bit more flexibility while giving me some speed, hopefully. But I think the one I'm going to be looking out for here is Piastri, who is starting in 4th on the softs. And those softs are very much going to be the favourable tyre at the beginning of this race. So we'll see how it goes as we see the last of the drivers line up in their grid boxes. Very good stuff. As we move on to the grid now, we got 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go. And indeed, Piastri gets an amazing start. Verstappen actually gets a very poor start off the line, moving down to P6 already. As we go side by side with Piastri now going into the first corner. We break a little bit later, but he's still on the inside, trying to keep the move alive here as we move on to turn 2 now. I got the inside though, so I kind of cover him off. Piastri tries hanging around the outside, but I cover him off into the next section. And that means now that we've held the lead. Piastri in 2nd, Leclerc in 3rd, and Verstappen now down to 7th position. He has had a shocker of a start. And as you'll see later, it actually gets a bit worse for him as we move now onto Sector 2, which is definitely a more downforce heavy section. Definitely the most downforce heavy section of this track. And yes, very good stuff. We keep the lead from Piastri, Leclerc in 3rd. Bottas actually moving down to P4 because of Piastri's lightning start. And Zhou remaining in 5th. But yeah, biggest winner there, definitely Piastri, moving from 4th to 2nd. Nearly got the lead actually from us, but we did manage to hold off from him. And the biggest loser definitely is Max Verstappen. And as I said, it's there are more reasons for why he's the biggest loser than just losing 5-6 positions at the start. As you'll see now from his perspective as we start the race. You can see the 5 red lights go off and he kind of bogs down just off the line here. And yeah, he gets overtaken by Leclerc, Zhou, Verstappen, not Verstappen, Bottas and whatnot. He kind of breaks the corner but gets hit from the side by Lando Norris and ends up running to the back of Zhou and losing one of his front wing end plates. Which means he's going to have a severe aerodynamic disadvantage. Moving forward, he's definitely going to need to pit in for a new wing. But as you can see, there's not really much blame can be put on Norris there. Verstappen kind of just goes to the left, and there was plenty of room on the right for him to go into. But
so we're expecting rain in about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, Norris not really to blame there for that mistake. As you heard from our engineer, rain is expected in 10 to 15 minutes. So I guess it doesn't really matter what tyre you're on. We're all going to be changing to intermediate soon enough anyway. As we see Verstappen, who's fallen quite down the order, is actually now fallen outside the points, with Albon overtaking him for P10. So they actually have not pitted him for a new front wing. They think it's all good. They think it's all right at the moment for everything to go ahead.
It looks like rain is inbound and we're expecting it in around 5 minutes. 5 minutes until the rain.
As we hear from our engineer now, the rain is 5 minutes away, even though the sun's still out on the screen. So I'm not sure whether he's correct in that assumption. But he does have the radars. He does have the data. As we move to lap 15 now, the rain has started to fall around the Hungaroring. So he wasn't too far off. I would have said about 10 minutes, but nonetheless, lap 15 moving on to lap 16 now, the rain has definitely arrived. We moved over 2 seconds ahead of Piastri. And on lap 17, I see that the crossover point has basically been reached, so I decided that we're going to come in for intermediates on my own accord rather than waiting for the engineer to tell us. And here we go, I decided to pull into the pit lane on lap 17 for the first pit stop of the day, moving from mediums to intermediates, and then no one else is actually coming in as of now, so this is a very bold call. Remember, I was in the lead of the race. You can actually see that Leclerc overtook Piastri there. So Leclerc's now in the lead, but Piastri might overtake and go back into turn 1 with the DRS, because the DRS is still enabled at this point. So I am taking a risk by taking these intermediates, but you can see that some other cars are coming in. I think that's an Alpine and a Red Bull are coming in. I don't know which Red Bull that is, because Perez is also down the field. Verstappen is definitely down the field. But we do move out onto the track now in P14, and DRS has just been disabled, which means we may have made the right call here for the intermediate tyres. And you can see in front of us, our teammate Hulkenberg is struggling to get around the track on his dry tyres. So we're kind of reeling him in at a rate of knots already coming out the pit lane. And in fact, we actually kind of decide to make a move around the outside here of turn 6, I think. I think it's turn 6. We try to make a move around the outside, and we actually make the move stick because of our superior traction on the intermediate tyres. So we move up to P13 now from P14, and everyone else has to pit in for the intermediate tyres because DRS is disabled and the track is definitely not suitable for dry tyres at this point. As we move on now to overtake Albon in a very unusual place, actually, at the end of Sector 2. So, because of our superior grip and traction, we are cutting through the field quite quickly. And we've got Tsunoda now up the road, but as you can see on the left, people are starting to come in for their pit stops onto the intermediate tyres, including Valtteri Bottas, who I believe was like P3 or P4, moving into the pit stops. But because of everyone coming in and everyone getting held up, Bottas actually ends up being the beneficiary of the pit stops, and he ends up jumping Piastri and Leclerc losing out horribly in the pit stops there, moving down to P8. Zhou and Sainz started to pit in, but Leclerc definitely losing out, and Bottas being the big winner there of the pit stops as we move on to lap 19 now. Zhou and Sainz decide to stay out for one more lap on the dry tyres, but considering the grip currently on the track right now, they are struggling. They cannot get any traction out of the corners, which means by the end of lap 19, even though we were like 6-7 seconds behind them, we actually caught up right to the back of them. And we now overtake Sainz as we go around the outside of the penultimate corner. And we also end up overtaking Zhou as well in the same corner. A double overtake around the penultimate corner of the track. Definitely shows that now is the right time to be on intermediates. And as you can see, Zhou and Sainz have come in for their pit stops now, but they are going to lose a lot of time. As we see Piastri now on lap 24 locking up into turn 1, which gives Alonso a little bit of a sniff to make the overtake on him. Piastri still staying side by side, getting the inside line going into turn 2. But Alonso hanging around the outside, gets the inside of the next corner and makes the move stick. So Piastri being punished for his mistake there into turn 1. As we moved into Sector 2 now, we got Hamilton actually, who is up to P5. Hamilton from P15 up to P5, a very good recovery drive for him so far. As we go into the chicane now, and Piastri locks up again going into the chicane and loses another position to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton now to P4. Hamilton having a very good race so far. His strategy was spot on. As we move on to lap 30 now, as you can see, the rain has intensified. And we now see some of the front runners coming in from intermediates to full wet tyres. I wonder how, we don't see those very often. We do not. But Bottas moving on to the full wet. I decide to stay out in the intermediates for a little bit and see whether the rain lightens up. Because my engineer does tell me that the rain will lighten up eventually, so I figured I could just hold it out on the
We've seen a couple of moments from other cars in the last lap or so. The intermediates are definitely starting to struggle. Might be time to move on to the full wet.
But as he's telling me, the intermediates are starting to struggle, and after a few laps I decide that, well, he's not far off, because as you can see, we're 34.3 seconds ahead of Bottas right now. But as you see in a moment, within the next few laps, that gap has gone down to 31.7, which is not a big swing in terms of like gap over 3 laps, but I decide I should not struggle. In fact, I lost an entire second for that lap. I actually end up drifting into the pit lane. That's how much I'm struggling on the intermediate tyres. So we do decide to surrender and come in for wet tyres. We do have a big enough gap that will still come out in P1 by the time the pit stop's done, but I figured I could hold on to the intermediates, but yeah, the rain is way too heavy at this point. So I'll come in for full wets. Good pit stop there, 2.4. And yeah, Bottas is starting to go through the last corner now as we come out the pit lane. So again, we hold on to our lead, but our advantage definitely has been cut down. We did have like a 13-14 second advantage going into the intermediate running, but now we're down to like 10 seconds. But as you can see, a couple of laps later, the rain does actually start to die down. So, yeah, very good stuff. I probably could have held on for another couple of laps and my intermediates would have come back to me and it would have saved me another pit stop that I'm going to do on lap 39, moving to lap 40. As I call in for another pit stop going on to the intermediates here. Again, it's kind of a risk, but I feel like the intermediates...
Okay, you're doing well out there. Keep it up. We're looking at about 10 more minutes of rain. 10 minutes. Inters and wets will probably have very similar pace at the moment.
But yeah, he did say inters and wets have similar pace at the moment, and that's only going to swing more in favour of the intermediates. So I decided to come in again, only after a few laps on the full wet tyres, to put on the intermediates, which means I will lose the lead of the race. But I'm sure many others, if not all the others, will end up going onto the intermediates as well. As we pull into our pit stops here. This is our third pit stop of the day. This is our third pit stop of the day, and we're only on lap 40 of 70. We've still got 30 laps left, which means there is plenty of time for making more pit stops. As we're near on side by side with Leclerc going into turn 1. We nearly hit him actually going into the first corner. Thankfully, I managed to avoid contact. But we end up in P6 behind Piastri and Leclerc here. We've got Bottas and Alonso now in P1 and P2. And we move on to the end of lap 40, and as you can see, the intermediates are absolutely the right tyre to be on, as we decide to make a bit of a lunge down the inside here of Leclerc, but he does give us the room, barely, kind of push him out a little bit. But we move up to P5 now, and next on the list is Piastri. Moving on to lap 41 here, we're going for the last corner, and yeah, we definitely have a lot more grip than the full wet tyre runners. We get a lot of traction coming out of the corner. We decide to get the slipstream because remember DRS is disabled of the wet weather. He pulls the inside to try and cover off, but I'm able to brake way much later than Piastri can. And I swing around the outside of turn 1, and that's P4 in the books for us. Next on the list is Lewis Hamilton, who is 6.7, not 6.7, 2 seconds up the road. And we make up that 2 seconds essentially in one lap, because as we see at the end of lap 41, we are right on the tail of Lewis Hamilton. And again, has had a very good recovery drive considering where he started in P15. But that's not going to help him now, because despite us being quite far back, going out the last corner, we can brake so much later than Lewis can. He does not see the move coming. And we move ourselves back up to the podium spots. So we only got Bottas and Alonso now left to recover our lead of this race. And yeah, we'll see whether they pit in. We actually start to see some drivers pit in at the end of lap 42 and lap 43, including our teammate Nico Hülkenberg, who hasn't really made much progress in this race, considering he started in P12. He actually has kind of moved back down, but again he is pitting. He's put on the intermediate tyres, so hopefully that will give him a bit of an advantage moving forward. Perez, I think, actually jumps him in the pit lane though, so that's not ideal for him. But yeah, we got some people coming for inters, including Bottas. Bottas now coming in for intermediate tyres, but Alonso actually staying out on the wets as we see ourselves overtake Alonso for the lead, in fact, moving into turn 1. Which means we have recovered the lead. Alonso now still on full wet tyres. I think he's trying to stick on the full wet tyres until the track dries, because as you can see, there is a dry line starting to form. And we actually move now onto lap 48, and we're coming in now for our final pit stop of the day, which will move us up to medium tyres for the rest of the race. Of course, we did start medium tyres, but because of the wet spell, the 2 dry compound requirement is no longer needed. So I figured with that 48, 49, we could probably do 20 or so laps on the mediums and run to the end of the race. And Alonso pitting in, everyone pitting in fact for dry tyres. Alonso going on to the hards actually, which is interesting. You can see a lot of drivers are actually going to go on the hards, as Hamilton actually stays out on the intermediates for another lap. I'm not sure if that'll be the right call or not. But yeah, we can see everyone's starting to move on to hard tyres now. And yeah, it's pretty much dry running for the rest of the race, as we see Verstappen, who has dropped down to last, and his front wing has still not been replaced despite pitting in 3 or 4 times. I'm not sure what Red Bull are doing. They could have easily replaced the front wing during one of the pit stops, but they have not. And that's left Verstappen to suffer, really. He started second and is currently P20. Not very good for him. person currently in second right now is Fernando Alonso, and with 5 laps to go, it looks like it's be very good for him. But no, he's slowing down. Oh no, Alonso, no. Alonso pulling over to the side of the track. Alonso is out of the Hungarian Grand Prix with 5 laps to go. That is very unfortunate for him. He was looking on for such a great result. Oh, that's a real shame there for Alonso. But nonetheless, we move to the last lap now. Not really much happened. There wasn't really much overtaking. As we actually drift around that corner there, blimey. We're really pushing on the limit here. I don't know why. We've got a comfortable lead over Lando Norris, but I think I was trying to set another fastest lap, but it's not really working out too well. But nonetheless, we do have a big gap to Lando. It's definitely been a very comfortable lead since the last lot of pit stops. As we come around the last corner, it's going to be Kevin Magnussen who wins the Hungarian Grand Prix for Haas.
That hard work on that. The results the last 3 years all paid off. All paid off, and now we need to deliver. Let's do this, man. Well done, everyone.
The Danish driver has done it. Kevin Magnussen takes the win.
There was never a moment of doubt today. You could tell that they completely had it under control, and that is a sign of greatness.
Haas are no doubt happy with today's performance, having secured the win this weekend. And our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations as we speak.
So there we go. Haas finally get their season kick-started on the second half of the 2024 championship. Kevin Magnussen taking the win here at Hungary. And you actually see Norris and Gasly actually ended up finishing up the podium here. Gasly inheriting a podium after Alonso's retirement. Norris was already in P3. They were actually kind of battling for P2 and P3 there, Norris and Gasly. But Gasly could never get close enough to Norris to make the overtakes. So it was close to Gasly. Could have taken P2, but nonetheless, I'm sure he'd be happy with a P3 result, and so would Alpine. But there we go. After 70 laps of the Hungarian Grand Prix, it's Kevin Magnussen who takes the victory after 4 pit stops. Norris and Gasly, P2 and P3. George Russell making it up to P4, actually. A very good recovery from him, and Sainz in P5. Bottas in P6, Hamilton in P7. A bit disappointing considering he was running in the podium spots at one point, but I'm sure he won't mind getting a few points there after qualifying in P15. Yuki Tsunoda in P8, Zhou Guanyu in P9, and Oscar Piastri, after making an amazing start, only ends up in P10. Those mistakes he made did not help him out at all. As for the rest of the finishers, we've got Leclerc in P11 after starting in P6, not very good for him. Ricciardo in P12, Albon in 13th, Sergio Perez in 14th, which means no points for Red Bull today. Hulkenberg 15th, Logan Sargent 16th, Ocon in P17, Lance Stroll in 18th, and Max Verstappen was the last of the finishers in P19. And we had one retirement, which was, unfortunately, Fernando Alonso. And you can see from the pit stops, actually, that people who came in for Inters didn't really end up getting much advantage, actually. In fact, they were a bit of a disadvantage. I guess it's due to the track not being very good for overtaking. That really helped the people who just stayed on the wets and went straight to the dries. So, yes, I think we were the only person on track who really benefited from going on to intermediates again. Everyone else kind of backfired on them. But there we go, that is the Hungarian Grand Prix done and dusted. Next race is the Belgian Grand Prix in a week's time, the final race before the summer break. What date would that be? That would be the 26th of July. That video will come out on the 26th of July, a week from when this video goes live, which will be the 19th. So yeah, Belgian Grand Prix, Spa-Francorchamps. I love the track. Spa-Francorchamps is a great track. So I'm looking forward to driving around it. And again, it's the last race before the summer break, so you won't get any F1 videos on my channel for about a month after the Belgian Grand Prix, which I'm sure some people might appreciate, some people might not. But nonetheless, Belgian Grand Prix next time out. Hopefully look forward to that one as well. As for the standings after the Hungarian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen is still in the lead of the championship, but his lead is now cut down to 9 points ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda probably could have ended up getting more points today, but did not. But he does move a few points ahead of Charles Leclerc, who stays in third on 129 points. Lando Norris is now only 7 points behind Leclerc in P4 after finishing P2 here in Hungary. Hamilton only 6 points behind Lando. I think Lando actually jumped Hamilton there. He did. So Hamilton now 6 points behind Lando, moving down to 5th. Alonso, unfortunately for him, could have got some big points today, but ended up retiring and still remains in P6 with 86 points. Sergio Perez still in 7th with 80 points. Carlos Sainz actually moving up to 8th now with 77, moving ahead of Oscar Piastri, who moves down to 9th. And Alexander Albon with 69 points rounds up the top 10. As for the constructors, Red Bull remaining in the lead of the championship. Their advantage has been decreased somewhat to Ferrari, thanks to Carlos Sainz getting a few points there for Ferrari. McLaren actually now move up to P3 ahead of RB. 1 point ahead of RB and only 8 points behind Ferrari. So again, like IRL, it seems like it's a three-way fight currently between Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren for that Constructors' Championship. And I'm sure Mercedes, if they keep getting good results, will jump RB as well and put themselves into the fight just like real life as well. Mercedes, 5th, 175 points, 22 points behind RB. Aston Martin in 6th with 141 points. Kick Sauber now on 100 points, which is 100 more than they've got in real life. They move up to P7. Alpine move ahead of Williams into P8 after Gasly's podium. Williams still on 69 points, and Haas, despite getting the victory in the fastest lap today, they still remain in last, but they are now 17 points behind 9th, so they are officially in the fight, I'd say, for P8 with Alpine and Williams. So Haas finally getting their season kick-started, still in last, but hopefully this is a start of something good for the American team. And there we go, that is the Hungarian Grand Prix done. Very good stuff. My commentary was a bit poor today, but again, I prefer doing it like live, because obviously the commentary is live as well, so I feel like this is more authentic. I could have edited it all out, but nah, that's boring. But yeah, Hungarian Grand Prix done. Hopefully you still enjoyed the video. This race was pretty fun actually. Changeable weather conditions, many different strategies on play. So it was tough actually to get the calls right, and we got a lot of the calls right. One or two were kind of iffy, but nonetheless we did get the victory, so that's what matters. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this race. If you did, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Remember, I'm doing videos for every single race this year, continuing with the Belgian Grand Prix next week. And yeah, as I said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you all for the next one.